And Sharon Boddy is our next presenter. I'll get Sharon. Oh, you're already there. Perfect. Sharon is a freelance writer and researcher with more than 25 years of experience. She holds a BA in English Literature from Carleton University and is enrolled in the Ontario Master Naturalists Program at Lakehead University right now. In 2016, she helped found the Friends of Carlington Woods, and in 2019, the Friends of Hampton Park. These groups work to conserve 2 small urban forests in Ottawa, and in this presentation, Sharon will discuss a buckthorn removal project spearheaded by the Friends of Carlton Woods. You sound very busy, Sharon. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, I tend to be kind of a busy woman. Can everybody see this?
It's just loading on my screen, but it looks, yep, I can see it now.
All right. Now, first of all, thank you very much to the Council for providing this opportunity for us to talk about our project. We're in Ottawa. We're on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe. And this project actually builds on existing project that we had already started, which was a pollinator garden. And for those of you who are particular age, I'm kind of punny, so Bye Buckthorn is kind of a pun on a Bay City Rollers tune. But to get you sort of situated as to where we are, because a lot of people are not familiar with Ottawa, this green right here is the Carleton Woods. So it's a 22-hectare alvar environment, which is basically characterized by very thin soils over a limestone bedrock. This is the experimental farm here. So we are very, very close to the experimental farm. And along here is the Ottawa River. We are within an area where the population is rapidly increasing as well, and green space is rapidly decreasing. So here's a bit of a closer aerial as to where we're actually starting to do our work. So for the pollinator patch, which I mentioned, and buckthorn removal is. So again, this is the largest portion of the woods. This is all owned by the National Capital Commission, so it's federal land. It's surrounded, as you can see, by fairly substantial residential area, and there's a high-rise building right here. So this is what the area looked like in the fall of 2020. And this is when we were in the planning stages of the pollinator garden. So it's kind of a little difficult to see, but the majority of this brush behind here is the buckthorn and the honeysuckle. There is quite a bit, there was a bit, in front of the fence line as well, which we were already starting to remove as part of the pollinator garden. But we were also lucky that we still retain a lot of native species. This is a mature bur oak, which has regenerated a few seedlings in the same area. We've got some common juniper as well. And even though we knew we were going to have to tackle this larger portion at some point, we simply did not have resources to do so. But we had with the pollinator garden anyway, and I think it was well worth it, because this is what it looked like in July of this past year. It's just a bit of a tight photo. And as you can see at this point, the honeysuckle is still behind that fence line. Now, one of the reasons we had done this patch was anybody who works in this kind of, in stewardship knows about the edge effect on forests. So this is a really heavily used urban forest. And one of the things we wanted to do was, at the very least, reduce the amount of trash going into the wood. And anecdotally, at least, we are picking a lot less trash than we were 2 years ago. And it's definitely increased habitat and biodiversity for our local insects. And it hopefully will build into the woods as well. Here's just some of the species that have been stopping by. And now we get to the fun part. As I said, we really weren't able to do anything about this until this year, or rather 2022. So in late 2021, we started a partnership with Fest Ottawa. They kind of helped us get the finish line. So one of the first things that we did was we got a land access permit with the National Capital Commission. That pretty much gives us the ability to remove invasive species, plant native plants, conduct community science, event walks, that kind of thing. And it's very easy. There's not a lot of bureaucracy. We tell them what our plan is. If they have any issues, they will amend it, and then we just go ahead. So this was our broad plan. As you can see, Clyde Bee Butterfly Patch was the first one, and then the buckthorn control area where we actually did the work this year. Cross fingers, we're going to continue moving into the back of that where still more buckthorn. Some of it depends on funding, but we can a little bit there anyway. So we to a $1,000 grant from the Invasive Species Centre to buy the plants that we needed to regenerate after we had taken out the buckthorn. Excuse me a minute. So we cleared in 3 stages. And it was mainly to restore our feathered friends, although when we did start getting back in there, we only discovered 1 nest and it hadn't even been recently used. So although birds are definitely using it as a food source, they're not using it as habitat. So just a few photos of us. In May of 22, we did a basic round in front of the fence and a little bit behind. In July, we took out some of the very large portions right along the fence line. We cannot use any mechanical or any electric equipment. We can't use chainsaws, for instance. So everything is done by saws, or you can see in that middle picture, that's called an extruder. And if you ever work on buckthorn and you don't have one of those, beg one of them, it will change your life. Probably cut our time to do that. So the last round, which was in October, and those are the last photographs at the bottom, it took us 5 days and about 20 volunteers in total, not 20 volunteers every single day, but over the course of those 5 days. And for 2 half days, we had a grade 6 class. There's nothing quite like grade 6 energy to get to be digging around in there. We also had a ton of help from the local neighbors who already knew about us because of the Clyde Butterfly Patch. So they would just, show up one day and say, hey, can I help, sort of thing. Very difficult area to work with. We had to contend with not just a lot of rock because it's a very rocky area. The area had been developed over the last 25 years, so we were finding construction waste and tiles and all manner of trash. Here are the seeds that we planted, and that's a panoramic view. So if you remember, this is the fence line. The Clyde Bee and Butterfly Patch would be out of shot of this lower one. There's 2 species in particular that I wanted to draw your attention to. One is the butternut, because that's an endangered tree species. But fortunately, Carleton has one of the, a very healthy population of butternut trees. Not saying we have a ton, but we have enough to possibly start collecting its seed and keep. So this is another way that we're going to try and keep that species going. Bladdernut, I've been reading more about, and it was almost extirpated in Ontario. So we're very happy to start bringing that one back as well. And you'll see that those mats that are all biodegradable. The rodent mats or the rodent guards rather are corn-based, and the tree mats are made out of coconut fibers, and they were supplied by our partners at the National Capital Commission. We have numbered every species. We have included them into our database, our plant database, so that we can track their health over time and see which ones actually work best in this particular area. They were chosen to be drought tolerant and work in a dry environment, but some may be better than others. So in terms of maintenance, our biggest maintenance problem is going to be pruning and getting regrowth out. We have learned to sex the female buckthorn, so we can go in and prune them before they even flower. That buys us some time. And it would be pretty irresponsible anyway to take it all out in one go, because it is a fairly good source for the wildlife at the moment. So until we can get additional species up and running, I don't really want to be raiding their grocery store. We've had some fantastic neighbors. The gentleman who lives right across the street has allowed us to use his tap for 2 years, but I think if we have to water trees and shrubs, his water bill is going to go up. So we can only count on his graciousness for so long. So we're trying to rig up sort of a passive rainwater system using the fence line and maybe some funneling system. So my partner in crime, Nora Lee, is going to be working on that. Here are just some of the people that we need to thank, the large project partners that we worked with and that we still continue to work with. The councils, because I remember when initially cut, so I downloaded just in case they disappeared. I cannot say enough about those grade 6 students. They got to work right away. They never complained. They just went to it. And the amount of trash that they picked up, because half of them went into the woods and picked up trash, was quite amazing. Here are some of the general benefits that we have seen for sure just over the last 2 years with the Clyde patch and what we think will happen in the coming years. I want to direct your attention to the last one in particular, because I think that's one of the keys. And a couple of the other speakers have mentioned this too. We can do all the right things, but until people take ownership of these spaces and they really love them and they take care of them regardless of whether they're in a group or not, that's the real point of success for me. And so we've just stopped by and it's like, oh, they're there, so they'll water the garden. They'll chase off, invaders. We've had a couple of people who've actually, sort of chased off the ne'er-do-wells. And lastly, some lessons. I've talked about a few of them already. I will say we always prepare reports, whether we're required to or not. The NCC doesn't necessarily ask us to do so, but we find it very helpful because then we have a history. And, God forbid, I always say if I get hit by a truck, then at least, the information is somewhere. And I always look for value added. I took that message of Elder Dan Smoke this morning to heart. I'm always looking for win-win-wins. So in our case, buckthorn is an incredibly good wood to work with. So I am looking for woodworkers in Ottawa who can maybe make some farm fencing, maybe some borders, or even just, artists who want to work with it. My husband is doing something with a piece that we took out as well for a guitar stand. So again, please keep in touch with us. I probably forgot a few things. We do have a webinar series going on right now, and I mentioned my partner in crime, Nora Lee. She is leading our webinar tonight. So there's our contact information where you can get in touch with us. And on YouTube, we do have a couple of videos of our buckthorn removal and our planting. So I think I may actually be ahead of time because I sped through that. So if anybody's got any questions, I'm more than happy to entertain those.
Yeah, you did great, Sharon. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. There's a couple minutes for questions. We have one in the chat here. How do you tell the buckthorn females before flowering and fruiting?
Oh, that is a good question. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to answer it because Nora's the expert and I haven't learned quite yet. All I know is the ones that bear the berries are going to be the females. So I'm still at that stage, but I can certainly get you the information. Or the OIPC manual probably has it in there.
Yeah, it probably doesn't.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah. There's another question just about the name of the Facebook page, and maybe we can put the link after too. But
I can put that in the chat if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you. That would be great. And there's one more question. What do you do with the stumps?
Oh yes, well we have with the City of Ottawa, we twine all of those up and they get picked up by the City of Ottawa. They get chipped. Anything that is live, so the berries, any roots that we have, and smaller twigs, we bag all of that, and that goes into landfill because we can't put it into the green bin program.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions, and great presentation again, Sharon.